Ladies and gentlemen, in the entire eastern time zone, beginning in Maine and working westward, at every national cemetery and every state veteran cemetery, there is a pause for a moment of silence. May I ask you to please join in a moment of silence. We thank you for your attendance here today to honor the fallen and to observe the Wreaths Across America program. As I stated, across the eastern time zone at 12 o'clock in every cemetery, citizens and military organizations just like you are gathered.
All right, face. Forward, march. That's right, face. Right, face. Hand, salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Ferris is with us today. Mr. Ferris is here representing the National Cemetery Administration and the Jacksonville National Cemetery, as well as our own St. Augustine National. Mr. Ferris, welcome.
I just wanted to give a brief thank you to everyone for coming out, waving through the elements, and it's a wonderful time to be here. Let's continue to keep each other in prayer. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to invite former Army captain and volunteer for this program, Mr. George Lenardis, to share the history of Wreaths Across America. Sir?
A 12-year-old paperboy for the Bangor Daily News named Morrill Worcester, now owner of Worcester Wreath Company of Harrington, Maine, won a trip to Washington, D.C. His first trip to our nation's capital was one he would never forget. Arlington National Cemetery made an especially indelible impression on him. Later in life, this experience reminded him that his good fortune was due in large part by veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. In 1992, the Worcester Wreath Company found themselves with a surplus of 5,000 wreaths nearing the end of the holiday season. Seeing an opportunity to honor our country's veterans with the aid of Maine Senator Olympia Stowe, arrangements were made for the surplus wreaths to be placed at Arlington in one of the older sections of the cemetery. A number of other individuals and organizations stepped up to help. James Prout, owner of Bluebird Ranch Trucking, provided transportation to Arlington from Maine. Volunteers from local American Legion and VFW posts gathered with members of the community to decorate each wreath with traditional red hand-tied bows, as you see on these. Members of the Maine State Society of Washington, D.C. helped organize the wreath laying, which included a special ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. In 2005, a photo of the stones at Arlington adorned with wreaths and covered with snow circulated around the internet in many newspapers around the country, as well as on numerous television news shows. Thousands of requests poured in from all over the country from people who wanted to emulate the Arlington project at their local, national, and state cemeteries. Worcester began sending 7 wreaths to every state, 1 for each branch of the military and for POW MIAs. In 2006, with the help of the National Civil Air Patrol and other civic organizations, simultaneous wreath-laying ceremonies were held at over 150 locations around the country. Keep that number in mind, 150 when they started. The Patriot Guard Riders, a motorcycle organization ensuring dignity and respect at memorial services, joined in providing a shield to mourners from interruptions by unpatriotic groups of protesters. In 2007, Wreaths Across America, Inc. was formed to continue to expand its efforts and support other similar groups around the country. This year, 2018, over 400 corporate and independent truck drivers from across the country have delivered more than 1.8 million wreaths for Wreaths Across America Day at their own expense. Wreaths Across America's founder, Morrill Worcester, the 12-year-old boy, and executive director Karen Worcester, one of his daughters, were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's Patriot Award. the highest award the society can bestow to an individual. To sum it all up real simple, the mission of Wreaths Across America is simple. Remember, honor, and teach.
Thank you, Sergeant Major, and thank all of you for being here today. It's indeed my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, is Captain Patrick McCormack, U.S. Navy Reserve retired. He grew up in East Granby, Connecticut, and is a graduate of Hamilton College. After graduating from Aviation Officer Candidate School and receiving his commission in 1983, McCormack was designated a Naval Flight Officer in 1984.
I would like to thank Colonel Dudley for that introduction, and Sergeant Major for setting this up today. I would like to follow up on the theme of the Wreaths Across America and the meaning for it and why we are here today, and thank you all for being here. I would like to put it in a little perspective, at least how I view it. Many of you are here on the last Monday of May for Memorial Day on these grounds for the Memorial Day commemorations that are here. It is remembering those who, for the service of their country in uniform, fell, and for whom we are always grateful. In November 11th, we have the Veterans Day. And the Veterans Day, at least in my mind, is more of a celebration. It is a celebration of all veterans that are alive and have passed, but it is more of a celebration and really, I think, focused on the service of those veterans. The Wreaths Across America, in my mind, I think takes elements of those, but is forward-looking, and it is looking, I think, particularly at our youth. Okay, and it is to remember, honor, and teach, and that is Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and then looking forward, teach, and I think that's really what we're here today. And so this will be a brief lesson, but I am hoping one that some of you will take on board and perhaps be able to use further throughout the coming years. And for the wreaths, a very typical standard one may actually have 10 separate bouquets. And those bouquets, each one of them means something. I'd like to go through them very briefly. The first one, for the veterans, their faith in God. Second, their love of each other, the veterans. Third, their strength, work ethic, and character. Fourth, their honesty and integrity. Fifth, their humility. Sixth, their ambitions and aspirations. Seventh, their optimism for America. Eight, their concern for the future. Nine, their pride in their duties. And 10th, their hopes and dreams that didn't always come true, but leaving the veterans really with no regrets. And also the red bow, signifying the great sacrifices I think the veterans have made. So again, I think the lesson of Wreaths Across America, I think, is a forward-looking lesson. It resides with Memorial Day, with Veterans Day, but it looks forward. It appreciates the veterans. It wants to learn from the veterans, but not just academically. It is for the purpose of service to this country. And it may be military service, but there are all varieties of service that this nation needs. Whether it's in a medical field, whether it's teaching, first responders, truck drivers, that's all service too. And your veterans, as proud as they are of military service, they want to know that others are going to provide service to maintain this great country. And that, most of all, is what your veteran wants to hear. Colonel Dudley, thank you very much.
Hey, we're honored today to recognize the branches of our armed services with a holiday wreath. To my rear, our position stands for each branch. And at this time, we will place a wreath from each branch on the stand provided. And we will begin with the United States Army. I'm going to ask former Captain George Lenardos if he would lead all Army veterans in placing the wreath. At this time, we recognize the United States Marines, and we're going to ask former Marine Bud Purvis if he would lead our Marines. Our next branch is the United States Navy, and we'll ask Captain McCormick to lead our Navy veterans.
Come in.
You have to send me a copy.
Our next branch will recognize the United States Air Force, and we'll ask Bill Dudley to lead the Air Force veterans. Air Force.
Come on, no, not this time.
Our next branch, United States Coast Guard, will ask Joe Giamonco to lead the Air Force, Coast Guard veterans.
You did pretty good work, by the way.
Thank you.
United States Merchant Marines. The wreath will be posted by Ed Tressler, World War II veteran of the Merchant Marines. He's second, first day. Stand. It is there because we will never forget. It represents the POWs and our MIAs. I would ask Command Sergeant Major Retired Joseph McDermott to place that wreath. If we have a former POW here, love to have you up front. All are invited to place wreaths at the headstones. We ask when you place the wreath that you please pause and say the name that's etched upon the stone. This personal effort preserves the memory of the one who served us. When all the wreaths have been placed, we ask you to please return to this location so that we can complete our program. At this time, feel free to place the wreaths. Thank you. seeing that most of you have returned, today, before we leave these hallowed grounds, let us in military tradition honor those who lie here. We'll do that by the firing of 3 volleys by our firing team from the Veterans of Foreign Wars post, followed by taps and a benediction by Chaplain Peppers. Your program says closing remarks. I could sum up the closing remarks with 2 words. Thank you. Thank you.